Hey everybody, this is the Sliders Review, and it's Women's History Month, and I'm here today to talk to you about Highlander the Raven. So this show came out in 1998, and it only lasted for one season. It was a spin-off of Highlander, the television series, which was a spin-off of the Highlander movies. And for the most part, this show is not very good. Sadly, it's just not that. They really missed the mark on the show. They could have really had something special with this series because everybody loves the character of Amanda. The problem with this show, it just was not written very well. It wasn't necessarily written like a Highlander show. This was written like a cop drama that just so happens to have immortals in it for some bizarre reason. It was really strange. See, here's the thing. At first, I never even knew this show existed back when it came on. See, I was a massive fan of Highlander the series, and I never knew about the movies. I didn't know about the movies too much later till no, actually, yeah, I did know about the movies around this time. No. I was still in high school. I hadn't graduated yet, so I didn't know about the movies. I wouldn't know about the movies until 2 or 3-ish years later. So I was a massive fan of the television series, and I was a massive fan of Amanda, played by that of Elizabeth Grayson. And so, like, I remember I started with Highlander around season 3 or so. The last season of Highlander, I did not watch. I could not get into that. It was syndicated. It was on a different, they put it on a different channel. I didn't even know about the last season. Then I started watching some episodes of the last season. I'm all like, how come Duncan isn't fighting? How come he's not taking nobody's head? And where's the quickening? So I stopped watching because that's that downgraded season. And so during that time, they was looking to make a couple of spin-offs on well-known characters. One was Amanda and one was Mythos. And so they decided to go with Amanda. And then a couple of years later, the dude who plays Mythos is starred in, what's it called? Queen of the Swords, which once again lasted for one season, but that was a really good show. And it got canceled because of stupid reasons, which Elizabeth guest starred on that. And so, like, they went with the Amanda spinoff, and I didn't know it necessarily existed around that time until one night. It was like Saturday. So of course, being young and, getting to stay up late after waking up early in the morning, watching cartoons and stuff, staying up late, trying to see what's going on at the nightlife on television and stuff, right? Lots of good syndicated stuff back then. And then as I'm flipping through the channels, I came across Highlander the Raven, and I saw Amanda, and she had platinum blonde hair because she used to have dark brown, but always had that short pixie cut. And I'm all like, is that Amanda? Wait, oh my god, like, this is Highlander, like, what's going on? I'm like, this is a brand new show. I was ecstatic. I was excited beyond belief. And so then I watched an episode, and I'm all like, what the heck did I just watch? It was so boring and stuff. And I hate the crap on this show, but, like, I'm sorry, but it wasn't Highlander. And in that whole episode, she didn't even fight with her sword and didn't take nobody's head, and there was no flashbacks. And I'm just like, what is this and stuff? But I kept watching. And so I got to episode, what was it? Passion Play, which was episode 10. And it started to feel more like a Highlander show. There were immortals in the show. There were flashbacks of like centuries ago. She fought with a sword, this and that. So I'm like, okay, cool. But then I noticed the action choreography wasn't really all that stellar in the fight sequence. So then I kept watching because, it's Highlander and it's Amanda. And so then I got to episode 12, A Matter of Time. Sorry, my camera died. So I got to episode 12, A Matter of Time, and they reintroduced Joe, played by Jim Bynes. And I'm all like, oh, it's Joe the Watcher. And they started talking about Watchers and stuff. And I'm like, cool, they're actually starting to feel more Highlander-ish and stuff. But then I saw this one character in the show played by Valentine Pelka, I think his name is. I'm all like, hold up, Duncan killed you in his series. What are you still doing here? Like, you wanted the Four Horsemen. But no, he just played a completely different character. I'm like, that don't make no sense. Why are they reusing characters that was in the Highlander series only that had died on this show? So I'm like, is this the same continuity or what's going on? So basically, it's like this. There are 22 episodes, right? And they wanted to be different from that of the Highlander series. So they went more into this cop drama type thing. They paired Amanda, who is a thief, with a cop by the name of Nick Wolf, played by Paul Johnson's son. Ooh, I can't say that. And so basically it's like this. He met her because she stole something. She did her thing, he did his thing, and then his partner ended up dying. Which, by the way, if he's a cop, he should know better that if somebody gets shot, you don't pick their body up and cradle them in your arms. You try to put pressure on the wound, and he didn't do that, so his partner died. She feels guilty in all this. He finds out that she's an immortal, so they're like partners, kinda. But he ended up quitting the force. So he's not a cop no more, but yet throughout the entire series, he still acts like a cop. He still interrogates people. He still beats people up. He handcuffs people. He pulls his gun on people, but yet he doesn't have a badge. He's kind of like freelancing. That right there just don't make no sense. And he's still friends with his former boss and everything. And sometimes and then his boss lets him go on, like, all these investigations, but yet he's not a cop no more. So that don't make no sense. So basically the entire series was just him and her, like, trying to stop crimes and stuff. Like, say, like, there'll be like a human person who has like a grudge or steal something. She would help figure out, like, where this person's at and all this other crap because she was street savvy. Or sometimes it would be an immortal who would want her to steal something, or they would steal something, or they had a grudge against her or against him or somebody else, and she had to intervene. But most of the time when she met immortals in this series, they never fought because they were just friends. And on a rare occasion, she did fight immortals that really wanted her head. And so it was just a weird premise to a Highlander series and stuff. It reminded me a little bit of Highlander season 1, which is a season I do not like because they had a slightly similar formula. Also, she had this older friend named Lucy who she was friends with, who she met in the 1960s, I think, or maybe 30s or something like that. I think it was 1960s. I can't really remember, but like the actress who plays her, I remember her from Goosebumps. She was in that one episode. She gave her grandson like prune juice or something, no, some kind of like prune juice to make him older, and pimped him out to like her older friend. Oh, and may she rest in peace. The actress died. Her last name is her name is Patricia Gage, and she died sadly. Oh, that's so sad. She was an interesting character. She just knew Amanda, would stick up for Amanda, lie to the cops for Amanda and stuff like that. But the show didn't get interesting until we got into a Lucy solo episode, which was episode 10, Passion Play, where, see, Lucy knew about immortals because she was married to one and another immortal took his head. She met Amanda at some time, and then they just, continued to be friends afterwards, and she wanted Amanda to get revenge for the person that took her husband's head. That is so Highlander right there. In fact, there's even a storyline from Highlander, but completely different. But the thing about Lucy is that her and Amanda lived in America, right? And that's where Nick is from. After Passion Play, they moved over to Paris, very similar to what the Highlander series did, which is really weird because the show is filmed in Canada, but it's also filmed in Paris. And Duncan went to Paris at one point in time. So Nick literally packed up his stuff and went to Paris along with like Amanda because he thought this is when the Valentino Pekla actor came in because it was like a former friend and mentor of hers and he wanted her head, and so she pretended to lie like she died so Nick would like leave that evil immortal dude alone, but he went literally to Paris to kill this man and everything because he was in love with Amanda, because they first did this whole will they won't they thing, but then they later became like a couple in that episode. So once he found out she's not dead and he's not dead, they took that evil immortal down and this and that. And so they just moved everything to Paris, which was just kind of weird. And it's just like, dude, what happened to your home in America and all this? And it was not written very well. And the whole Watchers and Joe, that was only one episode to tie that in. And so, like, when it came to the action, at first, in the first 9 episodes, oh, by the way, Lucy, she leaves the show once they go to Paris. So after that 10th episode, she's done and everything. And so when it came to the action, in the first 9 episodes, they would have like Amanda, the actress, do close-ups with the sword fighting, right? And it was pretty good. It wasn't as great as like, say, when Duncan did it and stuff. But then after the 10th episode, they started using a stunt double. And you can always tell because I remember when I used to watch this show and sometimes in reruns, like, they will always have the fight sequences far away, so you couldn't see nobody's face. And and the fighting started to get a bit better, just a bit. It still wasn't as compelling as when Duncan would fight somebody with a sword. And like, so I would have preferred to see her up close and see her practice more with a sword because it wasn't that bad. But, but the stunt double person was a lot better, obviously and stuff like that. But the way they fought, like the thing about Duncan is that he fought with grace and like skill. When she fights, it's more quick, jerky, and like, kind of actiony, kind of like Xena almost. Because at one point they kept trying to get her to do hand-to-hand combat, and she's no martial artist. And they would do close-up. I mean, the actress did her best, but she wasn't cutting the mustard. It didn't look convincing and stuff. This this television show was also plagued by that of music. Some of the music is good and other times it's terrible. When they do kind of like this rock techno type of thing in the action sequences, it feels like a cheesy cop drama. But when they really take their time and use graceful music, but a person singing, kind of like, I don't know what they really call it in singing. It's kind of like background music when it's kind of like something like that, like when they do stuff like that, it sounds great on the show and it gives the show its own style. Now, one great thing other than the acting was always good. The acting was never bad. That's the one great thing about this show was the acting and the chemistry between the two leads. But the thing I loved the most was the intro. It's not as awesome as like the Highlander intro, but it had a nice feel. Like you could tell this was like a feminine hero type show with the music playing in the background, the graphics and stuff. I never understood why they called it the Raven. That just never made no sense. But then they gave this kind of weird story about how Amanda is like a raven, stole night from day, and a thief, and like they sent a warrior, which was that cop dude after her, and and it was a weird backstory. But I do like the intro a lot. Like you get mesmerized by the intro and the end credit scenes. It is so mesmerizing. I love it. And so after a while, they realized, we're screwing this show up with the first couple of episodes. So the first half of the season is really bad. By the second half, it gets slightly better because it gets more Highlanderish. Oh, and by the way, Michelle Gomez guest stars in an episode. She's always had those strong cheekbones and stuff. But then once they got towards the end of the series, they got a little desperate. So what did they do? The cop dude, Nick, they made him immortal. So basically, you turn immortal like this. There are some people who are immortal, some people that are not. People who are immortal, they can sense when other immortals are around. But they can also sense when there's like almost immortal, around like a rookie immortal who hasn't been activated in their immortality. And the way to activate it is you have to die a shocking death. And if you don't, you just grow old and die. And so they decided to make Nick immortal towards the end because he had some kind of virus that was injected in him and he was dying from poison. And then at some point he dies, wakes up and realizes he's immortal. And Amanda then wasn't unable to save him, and he's pissed at her and walks away, talking about he doesn't want this life, he doesn't want to fight with a sword and all this other crap. And it just leaves off on that cliffhanger of him walking away from her. And it's weird because it's like this. He loves her. He can now be with her for the rest of their lives and everything. But of course, there is the prize, the game they have to play. All immortals must fight each other until there's only one left. And they don't even really mention that in this series. Only one time when Joe shows up. And so it doesn't feel very Highlanderish, but he could have literally spent the rest of his life with her, and he gets pissed and leaves because now he knows immortals are going to sense him and come after him, and he has to learn how to fight with a sword, and he has to watch all his friends die, and he can never have kids and stuff. So he doesn't like that life that she put on him and everything. And I feel like it was a desperate attempt because when you watch this series, from start to finish, you realize there's been so many opportunities where he's almost died and they have saved his life. Even Amanda has saved his life. And there have been other immortals that have sensed him and hate his behind. And they could have easily just shot and killed him, watch him come back alive, and then take his head. So I think this was a last ditch effort to try to save the show, but it just wasn't enough. Also, the quickening, whenever they did do in this series, did not look as cool as Highlander. And sadly, as much as I love Elizabeth, she does some terrible quickenings. She's no Adrian Paul or Christopher Lambert. I'm sorry, but it's true. It was just always weird seeing her get a quickening and stuff. Also, her sword was not cool looking at all. It was okay, but it was no Highlander like katana. So sadly, this show ended, and it ended for a very long time until it came out on DVD in 2005. Oh, by the way, Amanda is 1,200 years old. And so, I forgot to mention that. But anyway, you can watch this for free on Roku TV. It's on a couple of those free streaming sites. If you're that curious, you can kind of check it out, at least for the gooder episodes, the better episodes. That's like the second half, starting with episode 10. I recommend not watching the first 9 because you would just be sorely irritated and bored and just pissed off. But at least those last couple of episodes, they get a bit better, just not better-ish. Because one of the things that pissed me off about the fighting is that in the first 9 episodes, you see her, whenever she did fight, they would show her fighting, right? They wouldn't cut to nothing else. By the 10th episode or so, every time she would fight an immortal with a sword, they would cut from her and go show what Nick is doing, then cut from him and go back to Amanda. That got so irritating, it pissed me off. But yeah, so sadly, I ain't got much good stuff to say about this show, but I always did want to talk about it. Oh, and before I go, one thing that always confused me is when they brought characters from the Highlander series that were dead on over to this one. I already mentioned about Valentine, but also Phil Acklin, who played Charlie in the Highlander series, who died in Highlander, he makes a guest appearance here as a completely different character. And so when you see that, you get so confused. And that's because in the 90s, they used to reuse actors all the time. And like on Hercules and Xena. But when you do it on a show like this, when a character is clearly supposed to die and stay dead, it didn't make no sense. I assumed that was Charlie, but it wasn't. It's the actor, but it just wasn't the character. Happy Women's History Month, everybody. All right, well, I'll talk to you later. Bye.